This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
This episode is sponsored by Guidance Residential. Guidance Residential has helped over 30,000 families achieve home ownership without compromising their faith. Will you be next? Let them help you. Find Guidance Residential both on Facebook and Instagram at Guidance Residential and get your questions answered. Don't let halal home ownership just be a dream to you. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bombing While Muslim podcast. This is Uzma Jaffrey.
And this is Zeba Hassan. And, we're kind of recovering from our retreat right now, Uzma. How are you feeling? What's been going on with you?
Nothing. I got back into, I relaxed by watching TV.
Yes, you
do.
So
I fell into the new season of Rami. And so I am enjoying that thoroughly. I saw, obviously, there's a lot of criticisms about it. Mm-hmm. And then people either love it or they hate it. There's like no in between. Although I think we're in between because as Azhar Usman, one of the comedians that's on the show and one of the writers, and somebody that we grew up with watching at ISNA as like the first Muslim comedian we ever knew. Yeah, right. It's like, what? A Muslim comedian who's really a lawyer? Like, oh, that's a career? Comedian? Yeah, comedy's a career. So, what he said in response to a lot of the critics is we're not saying how Islam should be practiced, or how Islam should not be practiced. What we're saying is this is what it is. This is the dilemmas that our Muslim families and our youth and our elders, even like all the generations are going through and the social issues that they have to face. And whether we love or hate the way they do it, this is what's going on and we need to stop sticking our head in the sand about it. So I really appreciate that. And my husband is constantly like, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? I'm just like on the floor, like just ha ha. So it's my release. How are you releasing and like getting back into relaxation after the retreat?
Well, I was very excited. My oldest texted in the morning yesterday and was like, I need you to come and see me at school and bring me lots of brown people food. And that is exactly what I did. He is missing home
5 hours away.
We did 2.5 to see him for 1.5 hours. And you know what? That's the blessing. That's why we picked a school that was relatively close by so that if he needed to have support, he missed his brothers and his sister. And you know what? That's why we do what we do so that we can make those trips. And I have to say, I think he wasn't feeling 100%. He's getting every single cold, flu bug known to man. So I think just coming and having some like home cooked food, I think was exactly what he needed. And he stuffed his fridge and he already said he's not sharing. So I definitely appreciated that and being able to see him and that, and your kids, for me, my kids are always my release, alhamdulillah. So I am really, really grateful for that. But what I'm really super grateful for is all the DMs and all the messages that we're getting from people, the fact that we're highlighting such an intense issue that we talk about. It's almost to the end of October and it's our domestic violence awareness series. And as we all know, it's a very serious series that we've been talking about for a while. One that can sometimes unfortunately be deadly. And that is exactly what happened in the case of Alwiya Mohamed. She was a young wife, a mother, and she was unfortunately shot and killed by her husband, who has since committed suicide this past September during a string of Muslim deaths at the hands of their abusers. Alwiya was a Somali immigrant whose family had been part of the community of the Milwaukee Islamic Dawah Center for many years. And this incident left the entire community scarred and devastated. And we are so blessed today to have Brother Will Perry, who is the executive director of the Milwaukee Islamic Dawah Center, to kind of give, insight onto the other side of the table. And we really thank you for being here today, Brother Will. And I wish you could have been here under better circumstances, but you're here nonetheless, and we appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the podcast.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear sisters, and to your audience as well. Inshallah, I pray for your families and your listening audience that they have peace and success in this life and the next, because this issue that we're covering today is a very painful one for all of us. And so if we want to get right into it, I was on my way home from the masjid praying Isha prayer, and I get a phone call. And this phone call is from someone I ordinarily don't get a phone call from. Okay, so I know there's a sense of urgency on just the fact that this individual called me. So the brother called me and says, I just got a phone call from my sister who lives on such and such street. And she's heard there was a shooting that took place. And she knows that there are Muslims that live in the area, and she knows the family. And the sister that called is non-Muslim. So we have a very close relationship with the community that the families lived in. And so they know to give a call, to get a hold of Brother Will at the Dawah Center, because they know that's where they need to call and find out. They need to call the distress. As you know, I'm a retired firefighter. So this is a 911 call. Okay. So I'm turning around immediately. As I'm on my way to this location, I'm making 3 phone calls to guys that I know that are right now and available, the guys I just prayed with and the guys that live close to that area. So as I make this U-turn and heading towards that location, right away I'm going into 911 mode. That's, this scenario, this emergency call that's made. What could be the potential of what's going on at that location? So as I pull up about 2 blocks away, so I'm doing my assessment, right? So I'm seeing that the streets are really quiet, and that's usually not a good sign at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And so as I get around the corner, because now the traffic's been deterred, been moved into another. So then I see the lights, then I see the blue lights. And so I get about a block or so away. Now I see the yellow tape. And as I get out of my car and I'm walking towards that location, it's really dark. So a lot of those street lights are out. And so as I get to this location, and now I see the sisters in a large group sitting outside. All the Somali sisters in the community for the most part, and all of them young sisters, all the teenagers and 20-somethings. I'm seeing their faces as I'm walking up to the scene here. And then on the other side of the street, I see the neighbors that are sitting out watching. And then I notice then the police officers are there. And so as I make my way towards the center of all of this, I then see 3 of my sisters, the young sisters. These are my 20-somethings, teenage sisters. And I see one of the sisters holding a baby. And so now right away, I'm thinking that, certainly I know the scene, given I'm trying to make this as graphic as possible for you and your audience, that what this sort of thing looks like and the trauma that's taking place and what's going on, all the emotions taking place on all the folks that are around that are involved. And so I find out that it's a case where the brother killed his wife. The case where he then turned the gun on himself. And I'm asking them, and then they say they have a little baby. They have a little baby. And I said, well, where is the baby? And so the little one was being killed by one of the aunties that lived upstairs, was holding the baby, and they were sitting out front while the scene was being processed and investigated by the police department. The 2 were still inside the building when I got there, so they were still there. So now for me, it's this incident has taken place. Now I know and I can feel all the tension in the air around with particularly with the sisters that are there. And so I go over to them and immediately try to diffuse that and try to calm that and try to offer them some support right then and there, because I know what they're going through. These are young sisters that are sitting out here and really don't know what happened, but they have an idea what happened. And so it's about 50 sisters outside, sitting outside on the lawn. So I'm having a discussion with them in trying to comfort them and trying to offer some sense of my condolence to them and the family, because this young couple, both of them, they attended services here at the mosque. So I know them and I know their families, I know their parents and all that. So I've got a son and daughter with my grandchildren. My grandchildren are in there. And this thing has gotten to the point where it's deadly for both people. And why and how did we get to that? How did we get to that? Somebody in the community knows something. Did someone have an idea that some tension like that was going on for it to get to this point? Well, that's a whole nother story, and that's all the concerns. And I thought I saw something, and the sister said something. She reached out to somebody, because I know the sisters talk. I know they communicate. She communicated with somebody in there, within her family, within her community. If even the neighbor that's 2 houses down or so knew there was some trauma going on, there was some stress going on, but nobody addressed that. Nobody addressed that. Nobody came to the masjid and said, hey, Brother Will, we're having some problems. The young man, I saw him here praying maybe one Friday, whatever, and I saw him and I didn't know who it was until the guy showed me the picture. And once I saw the picture of the sister, because I know I know her, that she comes to the mosque on a regular basis also. But the young man, I only saw him every now and then. So now, all this stuff is going through my head. I'm having conversations with the men that are there. I'm having the conversations with the women that are there. I'm having the conversations with the mothers and the grandmothers that are there. Is that how and why no one saw this tension going on? No, I mean, this powder keg, this thing to explode. Why is it no one talked to one another? Why is it when the sister reached out, some of the aunties and the young sisters that she communicates with, why didn't they see that? And why didn't they address that? Because once you bring it to me, then I've got something to work with. I mean, once you bring it to me, it's kind of too late. Don't wait until, this thing is boiled over. And now certainly I'm here for the 911 call. But on the front end of that, we've got to have some of those conversations at the masjid or at home, whether that be in your living room or whether that be when the sisters are meeting. Wherever that takes place, Islamically, that's how we move. We communicate. And sisters in particularly are always communicating with one another. If you've got all these social media outlets, and you mean to tell me somewhere that didn't happen, where the sister had some conversation with the other sisters or with the family members, somewhere she let somebody know that she was in trouble. She let somebody know that she was potentially in danger. She didn't know to what extent, but she knew the background of her husband at the time. She knew that, but and maybe she may have communicated that to some folks, but they didn't address that. They really didn't address that. And so that's a missing link for us.
Right.
That communication between the old and the young, between the male and the female, between the masjid and the families and so on. That stuff is critical and it's crucial, because a lot of that, in hindsight, that stuff could have been addressed really in a long down the road, even at the point the two considering even getting married, because whatever issues that the brother had, he had that coming to the table. He had some mental health issues, or he had some substance abuse issues. He had an anger issue of something in there. Somebody knew something. Somebody saw some of those signs, but they refused to address them or to deal with it. So in some cases, in all cases, the sisters have a right to decide, hey, who I'm going to marry, who I'm not going to marry. You say, I know something about this guy that maybe my father, my uncles don't know. There's a talk around this guy's got a temper. There's a talk around this guy's got a mental health issues. And so we go back to the parents forcing the girl to get married to somebody that, hey, this is not a good match for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of that took place or not, but it could have taken place, but maybe it wasn't addressed. It wasn't listened to.
I love how you're taking it upstream and talking preventive strategy rather than waiting to receive the 911 and being one of those first responders. Yeah. But I mean, the reason why we have you on and, not another woman talking about this is because all month long, we've been asking our female guests that work in domestic abuse and domestic violence situations, where are the brothers? Yeah. What are they doing? And so you have broken a lot of my stereotypes coming to the table thinking they're completely tone deaf and they don't know what's going on. But I hope you appreciate the fact that historically, Muslim women going to the masjid with these kinds of issues and saying, I am not safe. They were told to have patience, sister. They were turned away.
I know.
So if she didn't report it to you, I can understand completely why. But as you pointed out, she talked to somebody. Mm-hmm. And why didn't that somebody intervene? What resources does the MIDC have for somebody to come forward and say, hey, a sister in the community is experiencing this. What do we do, Sheikh?
Yep. Let me tell you something. I got a team of guys here, particularly men. I have sisters too, but I've got some guys. I've got some soldiers here who will go into the house and drag this guy out if we have to. Okay?
You do it like Imam Siraj style?
We go and get him.
Oh, yeah.
We go and get him.
Oh, you got the posse.
We don't play around with that.
I thought the posse was retired.
We got the posse to go. No, we're strong and we're here. We go get them.
Okay.
We go get them. No, we handle that. I mean, it's been, we make that very clear that we protect the safety of our sisters in
Yes.
particular.
Okay.
The guys know this. So if you don't hear about it, if you don't hear about it, that means it's behind closed doors, and they're not going to let this thing get out,
Yeah.
because they know their brother Will and the team at the Dawah Center is going to come and address that. And so, but the brothers have a support system here too. If you've got some issues, a lot of guys are, in particular, I deal with a lot of guys that are coming home from the institution, right? So a lot of guys here are dealing with new relationships and relationships that have been around for a long time. So you got a little bit of both. So I'm dealing with a lot of guys who have been incarcerated for a long time and getting back into the relationship, getting back into this, the issue of marriage and so on. So I'm dealing with that from guys who are 40, 50, 60 years old. Some of the guys have never been married. Some of the guys have never been married because they've been locked up for 20 and 30 years. Some of these guys have been gone for a long time. So I'm at both ends of the spectrum, from the young guys that are just getting started to the older guys who are just getting started, and everything in between. So we've got to have a support system for the guys there too, to teach them how to be men, to help to groom them from. I'm going to guys that are down at RIAC. It's a youth offenders institution down there to have guys there from 14 to 25. So these guys are they're still in high school. So these guys got to learn their religion. They got to learn what relationships are all about, what really true manhood is all about. So we have an opportunity to work with them on that on a weekly basis with some of those guys. And so the issue of relationships comes up all the time, and how we're supposed to be the maintainers and the protectors of women, and how the best of us are the ones who are best to their wives and to their women. And so that stuff has to be led by example, though, too. As I had mentioned, I mean, my kids are 40 something, 20 something to 40 something. So I've got kids at all, and I've got grandchildren. They're probably about 11, 12 years old, right? My two sweet little granddaughters that I have. And so after being married really all of my adult life, at least 45 years I've been married. So I've been in that position and been responsible for someone else for a long time. So I bring a little experience to the table for the guys who either are married, who are either looking to get married, or who just want to have that conversation about being responsible for someone else. So if they want that other half of their life to be complete, you got to go about it the right way. So we have pretty prophets and messengers, so Allah and those came before us. All you got to do is take a look at some of those examples and some of the people around you that have been through that are some good models for you, and try to model yourself and try to pick up some of those tips and on some of that experience, because the experience is the best teacher. It's the best teacher for it. You can read about it, you can look at it on a YouTube video or whatever, but if you haven't lived through it, it's just not the same.
No,
it's not.
I definitely appreciate it, and I appreciate that you are explaining to our audience about learning through example, right? And practicing what you preach, and really understanding the religion the way that it was supposed to be practiced, and how men are supposed to treat women. But that's not necessarily how people are receiving that particular message. Right. So what is it that we can do as a community on a whole to kind of help support this messaging that it sounds like you guys are starting to do, so that these types of events don't, like you said, there isn't a match that strikes and it all blows up? What can we do along the way to help be that advocate for that sister, or even the brother that is maybe in that situation and looking for help on how to manage his emotions? What can we do as a community to help make sure what happened to Alwiya doesn't happen to another one of our sisters?
That's on two levels. Okay. The first is just before the incident, I had one sister who's a mental health specialist just happened to come in one day, and I said, you know what, sister, we should take a look at doing something where the sisters meet on a weekly basis, a support group for the sisters. So we have some mental health and healthcare professionals that are sisters that are here, members of our masjid here. So they meet every Friday, and sometimes they come in on Saturdays. So they have that group, that support group that can talk through some of those things and address some of those issues right here at the masjid. And for the guys, they meet on Saturdays, particularly like the young guys, the 20-somethings, the teenagers. They're meeting on a weekly basis also. And this all took place before the incident to try to get them back to the masjid. Okay, so they have them that guidance, have that an opportunity to kind of meet with one another, with some of the elders and so on, and kind of have those discussions. Now on the other end, like with their fathers and with their uncles, now those are the guys we got to grab and get either on. Most of them only come in on Fridays, and most of those guys you see at where we have the Eids, and those guys we'll see if we have an incident at their house. That's when we get a chance to touch base with them, because their fathers and uncles aren't coming here on a regular basis. So unless there's something that's an issue, then they'll talk to the imam, or they'll talk to Brother Will. Okay, I've got this issue, and a lot of them, unfortunately, they try to suppress that. They're going to hold on to that stuff. They know they've got an issue or something, whether that be, again, it comes down to kind of three: mental health, substance abuse, or anger issues. So usually those three are the top three that are kind of causing a lot of conflict between the husband and wife and with the children. So we do have mental health and substance abuse specialists within the community that first service is available to everybody. So we make those announcements on a regular basis. We send them out on blast on our social media, on our announcements, that those services and those resources are available. So we do that on a regular basis. But sometimes you got to go to the living room. Sometimes you got to get up and go to the homes. If the kids say something, Brother Will, the imam, there's something going on at home, I think you should address that. We have no problem with being unannounced. The kids invited us. We're going to the house and have that conversation with the parents, with the father in particular. So when you're going in there with 3 or 4 guys in there, or myself and maybe the imam going in there together, we have a listening ear. We have some impact on the guys. So, and we have no problem in going right there to his living room and having that discussion with the guy. Because some guys is just it's a one-on-one individual and everybody's circumstance is a little bit different. But we know that we have the resource and the capacity, the experience in our community to go right to the living room and address that right at their living room, if that be the case.
I am just loving that, because I've not grown up with the masjid administration or board that has such a one-on-one kind of direct, we're just going to show up to the house situation, because most people that I've grown up with are like, oh no, that's a personal matter. That's a personal matter. And if she's not complaining to the imam, then it's none of our business. She's the one that's, responsible for, undoing her oppression or whatever. So I really appreciate that. But you mentioned something at the beginning that is really important, that we need to be talking about this in our communities, and that we need to be talking about it in our masajid. So is domestic violence something that is spoken about in a khutbah? I am 45 years old. I have never heard a khutbah on domestic violence and domestic abuse. Never, not once.
Oh my gosh. Man, after the incident, unfortunately, every masjid in the city of Milwaukee had a khutbah on that. And it was delivered by very respected khatibs at the time. One of the pretty aggressive about the fact. Okay. So up to the point where, just wanted to try to grab the guys and choke them into some sense. So, and that's something that we have no problem whatsoever with addressing that issue on the minbar, particularly here at the Dawah Center. We cover it all. And what we do is, it's unique about us is that we have visiting khatibs that come in every Friday. There's somebody different coming in every Friday. So those khatibs that are coming in, they're coming in from all over the place, so we can take that right back to the masjids where they came from. And so we make sure that everybody who comes through here, we give them a theme. And if for something on one in particular, like domestic violence or whatever it is for that particular week or month, we stay on that. We stay on that consecutively for some time before we let that go until something else comes up. And that we've got a lot of material on that. We have one sisters group, Muslim sisters group that we plugged into the sisters they have healthcare professionals, mental health professionals also that the sisters have access to. And what we do, we'll have them come in and do some workshops here from time to time also, but also just have that contact with the sisters. So you have those professionals that can help you deal with some of that domestic issues and stuff that's maybe a little bit outside of the expertise of an imam and so on.
Yeah. So
we do have that expert resources as well. So I know that part is really critical for all of us, men and women.
Yeah, because I think it's important, a critical actually arm of prevention, because like you said, like after Alwiya's murder, this was talked about on the mimbar, but the mimbar is a place to reach the men, right? And it's like,
Yep.
if men are 10 times more likely to be the perpetrators of violence against women, including their wives, their intimate partners, then how do we access them in the Muslim community? And I really think the onus is on men to get up on the minbar and talk to them. Because that may be, like you said, some of those uncles, that's the only access you have to them. Because that's like the one time they have to come to the masjid. So they're going to come once a week. And why aren't we taking advantage of that and making it a regular part of the khutbah schedule? Like, oh, by the way, did you buy your wife flowers? Oh, by the way, did you tell her how wonderful she is? Just remind them to do those prophetic things that they should be doing anyway, but maybe that's the sunnah that they didn't choose, but the sunnah that they, that fabricated hadith of like, if there is anybody my wife could make sajda to, it would be me. They love that one. It's like, it's a weak hadith.
Yeah, they love that one. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, why is that your focus when you're focused on each other's rights? What are her rights?
Exactly right.
What are her rights? What are her rights? Are you addressing her rights first? I mean, that's what you agreed upon in the first place. That's what the contract was all about. You understand what those rights are. So if each other knows what each other's rights are, then you got it covered. But if you're focusing on what's in it for me, then you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Then and it's not balanced. It is nowhere near the sunnah if you only focus on what my rights are, what you're supposed to do for me, so to speak. But in some ways that's a cultural thing, but in other ways it's just it's a male type of environment thinking that I'm entitled to this or that, but they don't. Most of them don't know.
Yeah,
most of them had no idea. They've been growing up in a certain environment culturally and whatever. That's the way they grew up, and that's how they know. But they just have to be re-educated and retaught on that. If you want to have a fulfilling life with your partner, you got to get that stuff straight.
No, that's
you got to get it straight. You got to understand what her rights are, so that that your situation is taken care of. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do as a man, all the rest of that is going to be extra. As long as she's reassured, she's comforted, she knows that everything is secure, you're going to take care of your peace. If her emotionally she's stable, and Islamically, religiously, you've got that piece covered. You're taking care of the bills. You're taking care of making sure the place of shelter is good. You're good. You don't have to worry about all the rest of that. You don't have to worry about all. She's going to take care. Like I tell my wife all the time, she runs a tight ship. She's going to take care. She's going to take care of the ship. The ship is going to run smoothly, just fine. You only have a little waves every now and then, but for the most part, that's speaking, like I said, from a few years of being responsible and being committed to someone else.
Being the imam of a household.
It goes without saying. I know how well it works when I'm doing my part. The rest just takes care of itself.
No, and I appreciate that, starting from the very beginning of this conversation, where you're saying our kids, like, we're mom of the next generation of American Muslim children. So part of our responsibility is to teach and inform them these exact things. What are their rights if they're, on both ends? What are their responsibilities on both ends? And I do feel having access to that information, from the ground up is exactly where we need to start. That's first and foremost, to kind of prevent some of these issues and focusing, like you said, in taking our head out of the sand. We as a community have mental health issues. We have substance abuse issues. We have anger issues. And to deny that means we can't fix the problem. So part of what we are trying to do here on the podcast is to shed light on it, provide the resources, and help push our next generation forward. So I love the fact that you guys are doing it, seemingly at the Milwaukee mosque, and I really appreciate that. But we kind of need to have that go. Like Uzma said, she has not heard a khutbah. I have not heard a khutbah, and I grew up in the Chicago area, where we, which was one of the quote unquote OG Muslim organizations back in the day, and I didn't hear that. So what hope do we have in trying to spread that awareness? I feel like it's an uphill battle, and you guys are doing a great job, but how do we make that information readily available and almost a compulsory thing for all masjids in the area?
in the
And
country.
that's where you talk about the leadership on a higher level. You're talking Isna, Ikna, and all those folks who've got access to everybody.
Mhm.
You've got the availability to everybody. So why aren't you having on that level,
Yes.
having that conversation? If you've got national access and you're supposed to be the ones who are guiding and directing the larger community, then why aren't you having that conversation? I mean, yeah, if the guys are doing it locally, that's all that's happened is local. So as a result of that, only a few get that help and support,
Yes.
while the greater number, are still banging on the door, howling and screaming, letting you know this is not right.
Mhm.
So if you don't address that, you're gonna always have an issue, that's going to be one that's going to be so deep in our community that it's going to be really tough to fix. And now what happens? Families get fragmented.
Yes.
The children have no guidance at all. So a lot of our children who are going to a lot of a non-Muslim schooling environments or so on, and they don't have the tools they need to make those decisions and relationships and all of that. They don't have that. So if they're not prepped, what do you expect? What do you expect? If they don't have the guidance that should be coming from home, if they don't have the guidance that should be coming from the masjid, whether that be the imam, whether it be the director, whether that be some sort of resource at the masjid, because that's the first, other than the home, that's the first area of support, right? That's where your foundation is. If you can't get it there, then you're going to go try to find it somewhere else. And that somewhere else is not going to be in your best interest, because somewhere else is less than what Islam says how it should be. So we have enough room within our religion that we can address all of that. We have the perfect examples already. We just have to put that to use and stop just trying to put this up on a pedestal, put it behind the towers and whatever. Hey, like the sister said, just be patient. No, that's not good enough. And if you don't have the skills, then you need to find somebody who does.
Yeah.
If the imam, you can't put all that on the imam, because the imam may not have all those skills to handle that. He's got to be able to say, okay, I need some help. We got to take a look, restructuring this relationship the imam is having with the community, and not that everybody just comes into my office and sit down in my chair. I listen to the couple. I tell the sister to be patient. I tell the brother, okay, you do this or do that. And then they go back to the same thing. But you got to put, in some cases, you got to put some fear in these guys, because you're looking at the sisters, and her face tells a story. Her face and body language tell the whole story. She may not say much there, but her body language and her face is telling you everything. Mm-hmm. Then when I leave here, this guy is going to say something or do something to me once we leave this little meeting or whatever. Man, that better not happen on our watch over here.
I love that. I always thought the legend.
I get another phone call saying, "Hey, after that talk, my husband said this or did that." Man, we're going to go get him.
Okay. So the urban legend of the posse is not a legend; it is a reality. That makes me very, very happy.
It's the real thing.
Yeah, no, I love it.
We don't play around over here.
Sadly, not every locale has it. Not every local masjid community family provides that. However, Peaceful Family Projects does offer an imam training on domestic abuse.
Yeah.
However, it's just in the Virginia area, but it is a training that's available nationally. So I would encourage the imams, the directors, anybody who's listening to this particular episode, tap in there and get your imams trained, because you're right. The imam can't be expected to do everything, but if they have the right tools and know what resources, mainstream resources we can use in conjunction with our, Sharia, which is beautiful. It's just been polluted by culture, misunderstanding, and ignorance. Then I think they'll be better equipped to deal with it. And we won't have another 911 call like you had to deal with recently this summer. So in regards to that, you talked about the immediate addressing the community's need right there on the lawn after it happened acutely. But since then, has the media attention, because remember this summer, it was like, I think in Milwaukee, it was like 6 women were killed within a week. Domestic abuse, right? Yeah. And then nationally, we had Muslim women dying left and right at the hands of their abusers. Did you notice media attention was kind of focused from an Islamophobic angle, like, oh, Muslim men always kill their wives kind of thing, when you were addressing this as the director of MIDC? And then in addition to responding to the media, what did you do later for the community to support them after the loss of such a beautiful human being in your community?
It's that's not an easy one. Again, that's like my daughter and granddaughter, so it's an emotional thing for me to even just talk about it and think about it. And so it takes some courage to do the right thing sometimes. It takes courage. It takes courage and a sense of supposedly leadership on the part of those who have the opportunity to make a change and to address some issues. So I'm just saying to the leaders out there, you need to have the courage to do the right thing, to support our sisters and support the idea of educating our imams and whoever that is that have the responsibility of leadership in our community to take that stand on that. This cultural issue, man, it's been one that's been counterproductive for us. It's been counterproductive, and in many cases it's un-Islamic, because you say this is the way it's always been done, but no, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. So, from this point forward, we've just really have been communicating more openly with our young people in particular, starting with our young folks. And so we have the groups that meet here every week. And now that the kids are back to school, they're coming in, they're spending more time in the masjid on the weekends. And so now as a result of that, we're seeing some of the fathers coming to the masjid and spending a little bit more time on the weekends with the kids. And now we're taking another step, trying to have a circle for the men, where they actually have some of these guys that come to the masjid other than the Friday and other than the Eids, to try to strengthen that relationship, understanding and admitting to the fact that, hey, we do have some issues that aren't being addressed. There's some stuff under the carpet that we're not, or in the closet or whatever, that's not coming out, and it's going to be like a bottle keg that's going to explode at some point in time on something. Sometimes with some guys, they end up just leaving the family. Some guys end up, going on, getting involved with alcohol. Some guys end up just finding another companion or something, thinking that that's going to solve the problem at home. When the issue is you're not addressing your baggage that you're taking along somewhere else. That's not the answer. You're just taking that garbage to another place and leaving it there and starting all over again. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it is a fulfilling thing for me to see the young people coming to the masjid, and particularly seeing more of the sisters coming to the masjid. There really are champions around here and getting a lot of stuff done. And without the sisters being here, there's not a lot of movement around here.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of movement. And so they are the life of the masjids. When the sisters are here and they're being involved in what goes on here, and they're happy and they're comfortable, and they're bringing the kids, and the kids are running around all over the place and they're having a good time. That's the life. That's the life of the masjid.
Yeah.
That's the life. So that's the lifeblood of the masjids, is having the families here, that everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels safe. It's a place where we can come to and share some of those issues that are sort of considered to be taboo, or we don't have those conversations, but you should be able to do it, and this should be one of the safest places to do that. And that's we got to make that available to all of our community, the sisters and brothers and the children alike.
Inshallah, every masjid will be that safe space for our families. So we pray for that. We pray that you never get another 911 call. May none of us ever get the 911 call, and, then have to worry about the media dodging that happens. Like, no, every community is susceptible to this. It's not just a Muslim problem. It's an everybody problem. Yeah.
When you mentioned that, before I forget, you did ask me that. So in the interview I think I had a couple of one or two of the media came by. And so it wasn't an issue of just focusing on Muslim. I said, this is what's new for us. I mean, we had never experienced that in our community before. So they didn't focus in on the Islamophobia kind of approach. It was a broader approach that the newscaster said, okay, Brother Will, you know what? We've had X amount of suicide, had X number of homicides in our community against women, and I didn't know that until she brought it up, and I said, this is huge. So she brought that to my attention. At that time, it was like 7, and then so on a national scale, and that was just locally here. And then so she brought that to my attention and raised my awareness on that it's really even more of a national issue. And so that's why we become more involved in that, and realizing, hey, it's a piece for all of us to take some responsibility for.
Alhamdulillah.
And so they did. So they didn't try to narrow us down and put us in a corner on that one. No, they didn't. At least the local media didn't do that.
Good. Alhamdulillah. And that makes me really happy to hear, because we want to put our best foot forward, but very authentically, as a community that does support its families and its women. And it sounds like MIDC is doing that. So we'll include a link in our show notes for MIDC that appears to have not only the posse of my dreams, but also the women's programming and the men's programming that every masjid needs for every single generation. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the MIDC more barakah and success, and for you, inshallah, to have peace in your masjid family.
Inshallah. Amen. Thank you guys so much.
Same to you and your families and communities as well.
Amen.
This episode is sponsored by Guidance Residential. Guidance Residential has helped over 30,000 families achieve home ownership without compromising their faith. Will you be next? Let them help you. Find Guidance Residential both on Facebook and Instagram at Guidance Residential and get your questions answered. Don't let halal home ownership just be a dream to you.